This is a Sandy Boy Productions podcast. Hey everybody, welcome to I'll Have Another podcast with Lindsay Hine. I'm your host, Lindsay, and I'm so grateful you're here today. Today's episode of the podcast is sponsored by Gooder. If you are looking for functional, fashionable, and affordable sunglasses, you need to check out Gooder. They have all kinds of different styles. I love the aviator style. I love the runway style. I love my fun red PBR shades from Gooder. They have so many options, and it's just fun to wear different stylish shades every day that don't slip around when you're out running. And some of them just transition so nicely if you're going for a run to regular clothes or you're going to dinner or whatever. Their runway shades, their aviators, those transition really nicely to that. So go to gooder.com/another and use the code another15 for 15% off your order. That's gooder.com/another. Use the code another15 for 15% off your order. All right, today you're listening to episode 332, and I'm talking with Sarah Canney. Sarah is a friend of mine, and she was on the show way back, episode 57. So if you don't know Sarah, go back to that episode and get to know her a little bit there. We recorded that in 2017. I cannot believe how long it's been. But since then, I went out to Portsmouth, New Hampshire, and did a live show with her in 2018. And I have watched Sarah grow her business. She is the founder and host of the Rise.Run.Retreat. And it has just been so cool to see her lean into what she's passionate about and create this really special running retreat for women that she hosts year after year. And she rolled up her sleeves and did some awesome virtual retreats during the pandemic. So it's just been fun to see her shift and evolve and really create the business and life that she wants to live. So Sarah is a runner. She's a snowshoer. I don't even know if that's what you say. The snowshoe runner, a snowshoer. She loves climbing mountains. She loves a good IPA. And she has 3 kids of her own that her and her husband homeschool, which is pretty cool. Actually, you know what? Her and her husband were on the Illuminate podcast, which is another podcast I host every once in a while, talking about homeschooling their kids and being together all the time. I recorded with them right as the pandemic started and we were all home with our families a lot. If you want to listen to that episode, it is a great one. That's episode 32 over on the Illuminate podcast with Sarah and Mark Canney. All right, so if you want to learn more about Sarah, go to sarahcanney.com. And if you want to learn more about her running retreats, go to Rise.Run.Retreat.com. You're going to hear all about the retreats in this episode, though. And also, oh my gosh, this is the most important part I forgot to say. Sarah recently just totally went off social media. She doesn't do Instagram anymore, and I'm super intrigued by that decision and what that looks like for her life. If you're trying to grow a business and things like that, it is really hard to remove yourself from social media. But Sarah felt really passionate about doing that and how she wanted to live her life and the life she wants to create for herself. So we're going to dig into that a little bit in this episode. I think it's going to be interesting, and I think it's going to encourage us all to get off the scroll a little bit more. So that'll be a key talking point in this conversation that I'm really excited to share with you. So again, go to Rise.Run.Retreat.com if you're looking for a really cool retreat for women that involves running and community and education. It's a really, really cool retreat. All right, friends, if you enjoy this podcast, leave us a quick rating and review. We are giving away a pair of Gooder shades for all the new ratings and reviews that are coming in August, and then we'll draw a winner in September. If you do leave one, just shoot Emma, my assistant, Emma@sandyboyproductions.com, an email, or myself, Lindsay@sandyboyproductions.com, and we will get you entered to win the pair of Gooder shades. Okay, enjoy my conversation with Sarah. All right, friends, I'm so excited for this episode. I'm bringing back my friend and returning guest, Sarah Canney. Hi, Sarah.
Hi.
I love hearing your voice.
I know. It's so good to hear your voice as well. I'm excited for this conversation. I've been looking forward to it all day.
Yeah, I mean, well, we've been in. So, if you guys haven't listened to Sarah's first episode, she was 57. So, I think that was like 2016, maybe. I don't know. It was a very long time ago. But
Yeah.
I know a lot of listeners probably have followed you on Instagram and know about your running retreats. But Sarah and I we've been in a couple of like business groups together and, on phone calls together, but we haven't in a long time. So, it's really nice to hear your voice.
Yeah, and it's great to hear from you. I feel like so much has happened since the last time we connected. I mean, you moved to an entirely different state and yeah, there's a lot.
It's crazy. Okay. So catch us up on your life, though. I mean, obviously, a million things have happened since your original episode. One of the things being that I came out, like when Sandy was 2 months old and we did a live show in New Hampshire. But like, what's going on in your life with running, all the things right now?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because so I sort of got off of social media in June, and so my life has sort of just felt a little bit more like my own for the past few months here. But I mean, since the last time we talked, so much has happened. But, in terms of running, it's like all of 2020, I really, like everyone else, I really didn't race much. But I did a lot of what I tried to do each month was a personal challenge, basically. So I did a 50K. I went for a local FKT and, just did some other fun stuff kind of around where I am, just different things to keep it fresh. And this year, sort of my big goal race for the year was the Mount Washington Road Race, which is an uphill only race here in New Hampshire that climbs the highest peak in the Northeast, which is Mount Washington. It's 6,288 feet above sea level, which I know it doesn't sound like a lot compared to some of the mountains out west in Colorado, but considering that I live at like 500 feet above sea level, like we're starting at a pretty low point. So so that race was in June and I had the goal of finishing in the top 10, which was a kind of a big leap goal for me. And I finished 13th, which I'm super happy about. So that was it's a neat race. Like it's pretty challenging. It goes up the mountain road, which goes to the summit, and it's about 7.6 miles and just shy of 4,700 feet of elevation gain in those 7.6 miles. So yeah, but since then I haven't raced. That's been the only race so far, and so I think just consistent training has kind of been what I've been doing, and I have an elliptigo. I have 3 elliptigos now, and I ride my elliptigo a ton. So yeah, just a lot of fun sort of volume and playing around with training and having fun. So
Okay, first of all, that to me does sound like a lot of elevation.
yeah.
I mean, I am coming from Indy, and remember when I came and ran with you in New Hampshire, I was like, what are these hills?
Yeah.
But it is so hilly here in Raleigh. Like, people that are used to it are just like, oh, probably that's normal, But for me, it is a major shock to my system. Like every run, I'm like, do I have to run up these hills every time I go run? So I've been noticing my elevation gain on my watch. And for like a 6-mile run, it's usually like over 400 feet of elevation, which to me in Indy, I would be like 20 feet of elevation gain. So when I hear 6,000 and it's uphill the entire time with no like rest from that uphill, that sounds intense.
It is, and it's an interesting race. So this is the 5th year that I've done it, and because it is uphill the entire way and it never really plateaus or levels off, your pacing becomes really important, because if you go out too hard, then you will pay dearly, very quickly. So it's not like if you were to go out hard in a race, you could potentially, a road race, you could potentially have the ability to recover at some point a little bit, and maybe sort of turn it around. But this race is unforgiving, and there's no recovering if you mess up the pacing, which I learned the hard way the very first year that I did it.
I can't imagine. So is it steep enough at points that are you hiking at points?
So it ranges so the average grade is 12%. So I actually do a lot of my training at 12% on the treadmill. And there's a section with about, I don't know, 200 meters to go that is 22% grade. And that section tends to get a lot of hiking. But that particular section was the only section that I sort of hiked this time around. But the very first time I did it, I was able to run like maybe the first 2 miles, and then the rest of it was just a run walk to the top. So, but I think with this race, you just have to train really specifically for incline running to do well.
So tell me your time differences. So have you done it twice?
I've done it 5 times. So the very first year I
gosh.
did it, I did it in an hour and 49 minutes. And then this year I did it in an hour 30.
Wow.
So
that's awesome.
So I've taken almost 20 minutes off my time over the last 5 years. So and what's neat is at the end of the race, the race timing company, you can kind of walk up to the table and it scans your bib and then prints out sort of your results, but it also gives you your history of results. And so what's been kind of neat is to see, like, the very first year I did it, I was the 53rd woman.
Wow.
And then the next year I was like, I don't know, in the 40s. And then the next year I was in the 30s. And then the next year I cracked the top 20. And then this year I almost cracked top 10. So, it's the race that, like, I know there are a lot of people who, Boston's their race, or, they've got like this race that's sort of near and dear to their heart. Well, this is that race for me.
I love that. I love that. I've admired for a while now that you've kind of like steered away from road marathons and like you're just doing what you love to do. You love the snowshoe running. You love these mountain runs, and you're still like challenging your body to this like crazy degree, if not more than you would be on a road marathon. What has like pulled you to do that?
I think, it kind of actually goes back to when I was a teenager and my dad would take me hiking up in the White Mountains. And so I kind of developed this, affinity for mountains because it just is tied with really great memories with my dad. So I think there's something that I find just really, I don't know, I feel more connected to myself when I'm in that mountainous environment versus when I'm sort of in like a city marathon. Like, I'm just not really a city girl. So I love the mountains.
Yeah, and when Sarah says she's not a city girl, she really isn't. I have been to her house. It is not in a city.
Nope. We're out here up on a ridge in pretty rural New Hampshire.
And It is beautiful. Let's just sidetrack there really quick. You and your husband, Mark, designed your house, right?
Yeah. So, my husband is I suppose now he's a retired plumbing contractor. But yeah, plumber, and he was the general contractor for our house. And then we did just a ton of the work ourselves. Yeah. So we have in a place where a lot of the houses are this cookie cutter sort of colonial style house. We have a house that is not that. So it's like the weird house on the street, but we love it.
I love your house so much. To me, it's like for a family of 5, it is like the perfect size. It's not too big. It's not too small. You have everything you need. It's like, I don't know if rustic is the right word, but it is just like so cozy, and you guys did an awesome job.
Yeah, although my daughter would argue with that she needs her own bathroom and cannot share a bathroom with her brothers anymore. She can't tolerate them. But
I mean, I could see. I mean, I only had sisters, but I felt that way about my sisters, and she's getting to the age where she's probably really feeling that with brothers.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, our kids are going to be in the same situation, and actually, the house we bought here in Raleigh it's technically only 3 bedrooms. I mean, they sold it as a 4-bedroom house, but the 4th bedroom like doesn't have a door on it, and that's where Glenn's office is, which is like in the middle of everything. And all 4 of our kids, which I realize as they get older, being the same gender, this will be easier, but they are all 4 in the same room right now. And and it's a tiny little room. I mean, this house was half redone, and then the bedroom side was not redone. And so they're all in this, like, I don't know if it's like 10 by 10. I don't know. It's a small room, but they just sleep in there.
Yeah. Yeah, it's tough. I mean, before we built this house, we were in a really small condo, and all 3 kids were in the same room, and it was a tiny room.
When your kids were little, then.
They were little, yeah, but there was like bunk beds and a crib, and then the changing table and another dresser. There was like room to turn around, and that was about it.
Yeah, mixing in a kid that's still in a crib with the other kids, that's hard because sleep schedules and whatnot. But yeah, I could see being the girl wanting my own bathroom, but she will thrive, and she'll be resilient because she shared a bathroom with her brothers.
This is true.
How old is Sophia now?
She's going to be 12.
Okay.
Which is a little scary for me because that means she's 1 year closer to being a teenager. And I don't know. I feel like time is just going by so fast. It's crazy.
I know. I just talked about that with Sally McRae in one of my recent episodes with her. Just like, how do you like stay present and hold on to like what's happening right now and not like be sad that it's all going too fast, I
know. Yeah, so this week I'm solo parenting because my husband Mark is out of town, and he has been the stay-at-home parent actually for it'll be 2 years in October that he's kind of been the stay-at-home parent and then the homeschool parent because we also homeschool. And so this whole week I was just in 100% mom mode, like no work. Or very minimal work kind of before they would wake up. And we've kind of been doing all the things that we used to do all together, in the summer. And we've gone to the lake and, done some other things, the library and all that kind of stuff that we used to do. And what is so weird for me is how much their personalities have sort of developed over the last 2 years from when I was sort of the one who was with them almost 24/7, all day long, every day. And then over the last 2 years, I work from home, but they're with Mark and I'm kind of in my corner office that's in the middle of our bedroom, really. I just haven't had that sort of intense, like one-on-one time with the kids. I mean, we're all together, but yeah, that just intense time with them. And it's crazy to me just how much they've changed in that 2 years since we were sort of in the same situation where I was the one with them all the time.
Hey, everybody, a quick break here to thank Beam for supporting this episode of the podcast. For a very long time, I have looked for a great hydration line, and I'm so excited that I found that in Beam. My favorite is their Elevate Recovery. It is a hydrating electrolyte powder formulated with non-GMO collagen peptides, plus BCAA for supportive joint and muscle health. It tastes like rejuvenating fresh lemon. There's no sugar added, and it elevates your recovery. I don't know about you, but I am hot and sweaty on every single run. I am just drenched. It is so hot and humid here in North Carolina, where I've been running. I'm sure it's hot and humid still in Indiana too, where I just moved from. But there is not a day I go for a run where I don't drink this Elevate Recovery drink. It's just so important to replenish your electrolytes when you sweat a lot, and this stuff is legit. They also have a balance line and a pre-workout drink, all delicious. Again, though, my favorite is the recovery. You all can save when you go to beamtlc.com and use the code ANOTHER at checkout. While you're over there, if you want to check out their Dream Blend, that is their sleep supplement, I highly recommend it. I drink it every night. It does have some CBD in it, which the hydration line does not have CBD in it. But the Dream Blend, it's just like a healthy take on hot chocolate. It's delicious. It has sleep-enhancing vitamins and minerals, and I highly recommend it. So go to beamtlc.com, use the code ANOTHER, and you'll get 15% off your order. All right, back to the show. Okay, so Sarah, we have to get into this whole social media thing. So I mentioned earlier that Sarah and I have been on like some business calls together and things like that, and like groups that she has really spearheaded that have been really awesome with a bunch of other like running entrepreneur women. But Sarah had kind of been talking about this, like, I think that this is the right move for my life. Like, I want to get off social media. So can you just start from when you started really toying with the idea, could this work for me and my family and my business?
Yeah, I mean, it's so funny because I have friends who, like you, who have businesses that are very closely tied to using social media, and that's kind of an integral part of what they do. And then I have friends who use social media sort of casually, and then I have some friends who just like aren't really on social media at all. And so when I talked about this to the friends who aren't really on social media at all, it's like, well, what's the big deal? Like, like what are you talking about? But I think you understand that a lot of times social media, I mean, if you own a business, any kind of business, like it seems like a very integral part of how you get the word out and how you stay in contact with your community that you've built and your followers. And, especially, I think there's a difference between and there's a lot of crossover, but being an influencer and then sort of using social media for your business, I think, those can be, obviously there's crossover, but those two can be kind of different. But yeah, I think it was really the spring of 2020, and maybe it was sort of set in motion by the pandemic, and just sort of the overload of news and information, and just like the heightened stress and anxiety just felt really very real to me. And so I picked up the book Digital Minimalism, which is by Cal Newport. And I've read some other books by him, and actually Brad Stulberg. I know you're reading one of his books right now because I saw it on I actually saw it on Facebook. But
I interviewed him today, actually.
You did?
Yeah.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, so he's got some great books, but I know he's a fan, if not friends, with Cal Newport and sort of his philosophy. But basically, I had bought the book several years ago, maybe when it came out. I think it came out in 2018 or 2019. Picked it up and started to read it and kind of thought, oh, this is totally irrelevant to me because I need social media. And so I didn't even make it probably 2 or 3 chapters in. And then I sort of went back into it in April 2020, I think it was. And it just made more sense to me at that point. And I think, so I was thinking about it for quite a while, and then I was like, okay, I'm going to do his 30-day digital detox, which is kind of what he talks about in his book, is like you detox for 30 days. And then at the end of 30 days, you kind of decide like what relationship you're going to have and how you're going to add things back in. And so I was like, oh, I'll do that in June. That makes sense. And then June came and of last year, and I didn't do it, and just kind of kept going and kept going. And then I finally was like, okay, I'm going to do it in December. That seems like a good time. Like with the holidays, I can just focus on family. And so I did it in December. And over the course of the 30 days, I felt like somebody had turned off the background noise, if that makes sense. And so, it was like there had been this constant chatter in the back of my mind, and somebody turned it off, and suddenly I felt just a clarity and creativity and more engagement and presence with my family. And yeah, just sort of like felt like I was getting back in touch with something that I was sort of out of touch with, which was, real life. So, and even then, it was, I didn't miss it, and I thought I would, and I was kind of reluctant to go back. But then, January it's a pretty important time for Rise.Run.Retreat, because that's when we announce all of our offerings for the coming year. We announce our retreats. We kind of, share what we're, big sort of launch about what we're doing, and a big push for sort of the first wave of registration. And so I didn't feel like I could get off of social media. It felt pretty essential. And so kind of dove back into it. And I think the biggest thing that I that was sort of I guess you could call it a red flag, or just something that I noticed that I just didn't really like as I kind of got back into it, was sort of thinking about everything in my life in terms of content. And so it was like, oh, I'm making dinner. This is actually a recipe that I made up. Oh, this should be a story. I put my phone up on the counter and, blah, 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 and, narrate my cooking.
Yep.
And so I was constantly thinking about all of these real life situations in terms of how they could be content for social media. And with that lens in front of everything, it just, and actually, I can't remember the name of Brad Stulberg's podcast with Steve Magnus, but their podcast, they actually recently, well, probably not recently, but a couple months ago had a podcast about this where they were talking about making parts of your life work, right? And so it's like all of a sudden parts of my life were becoming work because I was sharing them on Instagram, which I use for work, for my business. And they were each talking about like the parts of their life that they absolutely do not share because they don't want it to feel like work. They don't want work to seep into these parts of their life so that they can, be totally engaged with those other things without them feeling like work. And I think what I was noticing is that, just a lot of aspects of my life were feeling like work because I was feeling like I had to create content around them. And also as social media platforms come out with new features and you know this,
make it stop.
I know. If you want your following to see anything that you post, in order to be like sort of current with the algorithm, you have to use these new features. And so it's almost like this bottomless pit of demanding more and more and more and more. And, you can either play the game and you can make the stories and you can make the reels and I don't even know what they've come up with in the last couple months, but you could do the like live with multiple guests and, you can do all that so that, and really what Instagram's trying to get you to do is to just be on the platform more. And so they sort of are relying on all these content creators to basically keep the content consumers on the platform. And so I just felt like I was in this sort of rat race that I didn't really sign up for. Because when I got on Instagram in, I don't know, 2012 or whenever it was that I joined, it was just a way to like connect with people like you. Like that's how we connected. And, it just felt very I hate to say it, but organic and like, and like, just these real connections. And then I think as things sort of have shifted, it just feels different and it doesn't have that sort of community feel. But that's kind of the long-winded answer of why. There's so many aspects of it just didn't sit right anymore. And I can't explain, maybe there's a little bit of it that I can't explain other than it was this sort of gut feeling that like, I just need to step away. And I didn't I didn't delete anything. It's all still like my account is all still there because I don't know, maybe I'll come back. Like maybe I can develop a healthier relationship with it and use it in a different way and have a different sort of perception of it. But for now, I know that like the last few months have it's been good.
Yeah. I mean, so much of that resonates with me. And I'm sure a lot of the listeners, and especially if the listener is using Instagram or whatever it is for their business, for me, I do feel like, I need to promote my podcasts on Instagram because if I don't promote the podcast on Instagram, what will incentivize my guests to share it? You know what I mean? Like, so it's like little things like that. But I hear what you're saying about the constant content thing. And that's why, like, sometimes I pick like 1 or 2 days where I'm just like, I'm not doing social media because I just don't want that to be part of my life. But there's this pressure because sounds so silly, but it's like, you don't want to constantly just be promoting stuff, right? So like, I don't want to just promote my podcast. I don't want to just promote my sponsors for the podcast or like some race that I'm doing. I also want to share like my real life and like let you in a little bit. And I do enjoy those relationships I've made with some people from those organic like sharings, like of my kids being crazy or whatever it is. But I do think it's a balancing act. Like, because sometimes I feel gross. I'm like, why did I just share so much? Like, I didn't need to, everybody doesn't need to know all those things about what my family just did. So I don't know that anybody really has it down, like to a science of like how to balance it well. And if you do, let me know.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and it's interesting because there have been I haven't thought this way in a little bit, but like at first something would happen, like especially Mark. I think my husband's hilarious, but
he
would
is
do
hilarious.
something hilarious. He is, and I would think, oh my gosh, I wish I had gotten that.
Yes.
That would make the funniest whatever story or post or whatever. So, there's times like that where I was like, oh, that would make people chuckle and that would be funny. So, I have thought like that a few times, and but I think what has been neat is that I still have my newsletter list, and I send out a newsletter every Monday, and I've also had people reach out randomly via email and say, hey, how are you? Or, I know you're not on social media, but did you see this new race that just popped up? Maybe you want to run, like it's close to you. You might want to run it, or, and so people are still like engaging and reaching out and in a very real and heartwarming way, actually. So
I love that. Well, I mean, just what you were saying about Mark doing something funny. It's like, you're trying to remove that thought though, right? Like I'm the same way with Glenn. Sometimes he says something funny and I'm like, oh, I wish I would have been recording that. Like that made me laugh. And it's like trying to eliminate that thought and just think he's funny and enjoy it.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's kind of what has happened is like, especially I got off June 1st. And so June was a lot of that, like that habit that there was just like a habit of thinking that way. And so I had a lot of those thoughts kind of popping into my mind in June, and it would actually, I would think that like, oh, this would be a funny story or whatever the thought might be. And then the next minute I would be like, actually just be in this moment. Like, what about this moment are you enjoying?
Yep.
And so it almost made me sort of like sink into the present moment a little bit more, almost as a reaction to that thought, which I think was just a really good awareness.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, sometimes I envy people that just never got into social media because I'm like, oh, it doesn't even have any sort of like relevance in your life. You just don't care.
Yeah. I agree. And, Mark has never really been on social media. So he's one of those people. And then I have some friends who aren't on at all and actually have been spending far more time with them, which has been really great.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I think, my time has been filled up with just sort of more creative endeavors and a lot of real life, connections and a lot more reading. I'm doing a lot more reading, which is good. So.
One of the things we talked about, I don't know if you remember this in our conversation. I forget who was on the call. Kelly Vigil was on the call for sure. Oh, gosh. Maybe Mary Johnson, too, I bet. But anyway, we were talking about like all the time spent like, oh, let me make sure I get a picture after I run or whatever, like getting pictures here and there. And I asked you, I was like, does that sometimes make you sad? Do you remember that?
Yeah. Yeah, and it's interesting because I think at the time my answer was no, or I don't remember what my answer was.
I think you said kind of. I think you said kind of.
Kind of, yeah, that sounds more accurate. But what's interesting is so the Mount Washington race was in June, and it was at the end of June. So I'd been off of social media for three weeks, and it was really interesting to have what I would consider for me kind of a breakthrough race.
Yeah.
And then not share it on social media. And what was interesting was there was a little bit of like I mean, marathon blues, but I'm not a marathon, but like just a little bit of like bummed outness that happened in the days after, because I was sort of thinking about how everyone, you kind of prolong the race experience on social media,
For sure.
by sharing pictures and sort of talking about it and like checking in with other people who ran, and it sort of prolongs the race experience, which I think, that's a cool thing. That's a good thing. And I sort of had this like left out feeling of that, which I wasn't expecting. I mean, I knew it would be, and during the race, I was thinking like I was very focused on the race and never really, and then after the race, just focused on saying hi to all these people that I hadn't seen in a year. And like, I actually don't have a single picture from race day because I think I was just like so in the moment. And so that aspect was really good. But then in the days after, I was like, oh, I don't have any pictures and I'm not sharing in all the pictures on social media. So there was like a little bit of a letdown.
Yeah. I was listening to Liz Bohannon's podcast. Didn't I told you about her podcast, right?
Yeah, I love that podcast.
Okay, Plucking Up, which, man, I just listened to her recap. She got really sick with COVID when she was like 36 weeks pregnant.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Yeah. It's like so happy that she's okay and everything. But for those listening, if you're interested into these types of conversations, her podcast is really good. It's called Plucking Up. But anyway, and I just ordered a purse from her business, which is Seiko Designs. Just came in the mail today. It was like the most exciting mail day ever.
That's great.
But I think I was telling you that on one of our calls that she did this interview with Matthew McConaughey when his book came out. And one of the things they talked about was social media. And she was quoting some research done that like there is, I forget what the hormone is or serotonin, whatever it is. I'm probably saying
dopamine.
that. Dopamine. Yeah. I was going to say serotonin's the sleep thing, right?
Yep.
Sleep hormone. So I'm probably saying this wrong, friends. So just go with me here. But anyway, that when we experience something really cool, like getting to a mountaintop or like you finishing a race, we get like a little bit of a dopamine hit, but then that real hit in today's culture and age and in this like Western culture that we live in, like the picture, taking the picture and then posting the picture is when those surges really happen. And it's like, that's crazy. You're not even fully there when the moment is happening because you're thinking about the picture. And then when the picture happens, that's not even it. It's when you post the picture and then when the comments come in. So, I mean, I think you're giving yourself this like beautiful gift, not just for yourself, but like for your kids.
Yeah, it's funny because I was actually recalling that conversation, probably not during the race, but definitely after the race, just thinking like, okay, like that's it. This is my dopamine hit. Like I need to savor this moment because I'm not going to rehash it on social media. And I think it's interesting because before I got off of social media, I actually had a really fantastic phone call with Mario Fraioli, who's been off, I think, over a year now. And he just, had a lot of great things to say and some encouragement. And one of the things he did mention was he's like, just, be prepared for the withdrawal. And, at first I was like, what? Like, no, there's not going to be any withdrawal. Like, I'm not like addicted to likes. Like, I've never really been someone who sort of watched my analytics. Like I just kind of was like happy to go along and, and do my thing. And maybe I should have paid more attention to analytics. I don't know. But, it's interesting because I would say that in July, I sort of was in this inexplicable funk. And then I recalled what he had said and I was like, oh, I think like my dopamine must be all wacky, because it's not so much the likes and I wasn't sort of getting my dopamine hit from that or the analytics. It was more like, the comment like, oh my gosh, what you wrote just it really resonated with me and I needed to read it today. It's like that kind of thing where you're like, oh man, like what I'm doing is really meaningful and it's really important. And I'm on the right track. Like that's the dopamine, like that's a pretty big hit of dopamine. Like it's not so much the likes. I think it's the the connection. And, the thing is, like, that kind of dopamine is good, right? It's like good connection. And it's positive. And so, there's part of me that's like, well, there was a lot of good things that came out of social media, and there are a lot of good things that can still come out of social media. But I think, what I'm finding is that I think I'm finding that sort of those dopamine hits more with who is in my immediate sort of sphere of influence. So that's my kids, that's my husband, that's some close friends, and, just spending more time engaged with those people around me. And not that I wasn't before, like I was there in body, but maybe not 100% there in mind as well. So I don't know, a lot to kind of like figure out.
Yeah. And it's interesting to me too, hearing you say that, because from my experience with you as a friend and being in your home and knowing your family a little bit, like I felt like you did a really good job with separating it and being present, So, to hear you say that you even struggled with it, it kind of surprised me, honestly. And I think that sometimes people are like, they want to play that they're too cool. Like, I don't care about that. It doesn't, have any type of hold on me.
Yeah.
But if you're waking up in the morning and looking at your phone first thing and looking at it before you go to bed, there's a hold.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, I think my sort of line that I always said was like, well, I don't watch TV, and I don't watch I watch Ted Lasso, and that's about it.
Good, because I would be very upset with you if you didn't.
Yeah. But I didn't watch a lot of TV, and I would just, like, if my family was watching a movie or my husband was watching a show, I'd be like, oh, well, this is my Instagram time.
Sure.
I'm just gonna, be on Instagram. And I'm not really doing that anymore. So I don't, I'm just, there, which I think is good. And yeah, I don't know. I think it's possible to have a healthy relationship with it. And I don't think that my relationship with it was unhealthy. I think I just felt like in what was best for me in that moment was to just step away and to step away with not really any sort of definitive parameters, like, oh, I'm never doing this again, or I'm deleting everything, no sort of extremes, but just to step away and give some space and see what comes out of that.
All right, friends, a quick break here. I want to let you know I am coaching the team of athletes running the New York City Marathon for Every Mother Counts. Run Team ENC runs to improve access to critical maternal care for every mother everywhere. Okay, so if you want to join the team and run the New York City Marathon, you can join the team. The fundraising minimum to run for Every Mother Counts for the New York City Marathon this year is $3,600. Go check out Every Mother Counts on Instagram, their running team, Run Team EMC, and learn more about getting signed up to run and race for Every Mother Counts for the New York City Marathon. And if you do sign up for the team, I do send out weekly training emails to the team on Mondays. And then also you have 2 different training plan options that will be uploaded to a VDOT calendar that you have access to if you join the team. So go to everymothercounts.org to learn more and get signed up if you're interested in raising funds for maternal health care around the world. All right, back to the show. So tell us, okay, so you mentioned Cal Newport's book, Digital Minimalism. Were there any other resources that you could point people toward if they are looking to not be so into the social media?
Yeah, so there was a really good podcast that I listened to that was called Under the Influence. And it was, it was like a series podcast. I think they just did 8 or 10 episodes and then stopped. And that one was really kind of dove more into the mommy blogger, or not mommy blogger, mommy influencer world. Mm-hmm. But it was just kind of I thought it was a thoughtful sort of dive into just everything that kind of goes goes on behind the scenes in terms of, being on social media and maintaining, what people might call personal brand. So that was really interesting. Obviously, The Social Dilemma on Netflix, that documentary is also pretty good. And that was pretty just influential. There was another article that I read. I think it was called Your Brain on Instagram. And it was kind of all about sort of the neuroscience behind the use of these apps and the dopamine and kind of like what exactly is happening in your brain. And yeah, there were a few others. And if people want to find them, I actually wrote a blog post that's called Antisocial. And at the end of the blog post, I linked to everything that sort of was influential in making my decision. So they can find that on my website if they want to find the links to all that stuff.
You know what? I think I didn't watch The Social Dilemma because I was like scared.
Yeah, it is a little scary, but it's kind of watch it and sort of take from it what you want to take from it and sort of leave behind what you don't need. And yeah.
I'm curious your thoughts on all this raising kids. Sophia is 12. We talked about that. And then Jack is 9. Liam is 6. So what are your feelings towards screens and your kids?
Yeah. Yeah. So that was also a factor in the decision is Sophia doesn't have a phone. And I'm not sure it'll probably be like when she's driving, I think. I mean, we homeschool, so she doesn't have we're not picking her up or dropping her off I mean, we are, but I don't know. I think we think when she's driving, she can get a phone, which I know probably sounds pretty radical.
I love it.
And, she has friends who are on TikTok and social media. And, my sort of response was it's just not a good idea. It's not a good idea to be hooked to your phone for that dopamine hit, especially when you're in those developmental stages. And, and we've been around families whose kids, at a cookout or something, and the kids are on the phones or the tablets or whatever, and they're just appear to be kind of checked out, which we're trying to avoid, trying to raise kids who can engage in conversation and feel comfortable in, different social situations. And so I think we have a pretty conservative approach to screens. I say this, and my kids are currently watching a movie because I'm solo parenting this week.
A movie is different than sitting on TikTok.
Yes. Yeah. So, but yeah, I mean, I think we just, we have one night a week where they can, they like to play Minecraft, so they play Minecraft, and the rest of the time we're trying to send them outside and have them do crafts.
So that's interesting. One night a week. Is it every Friday or something? And it's a certain day?
It's Thursday. It's every Thursday night. So that's also Mark and my date night.
Oh, nice.
And all through COVID, we were doing sort of home dates because we weren't going out to eat at all. And so the kids would just kind of go off on their iPads, and, Mark and I would be able to sit down at the dinner table and actually have a conversation that was uninterrupted. So that's kind of how we treat it. Is date night is also screen night for the kids.
You have a 12-year-old daughter and your youngest is 6. You can go out on date nights, can't you?
We could. Yeah. We haven't gone into that territory quite yet of leaving them at home, which is funny because my parents left me at home when I was 10. You know? So they're like, "Oh, you're fine. I go to the grocery store."
Yeah. I mean, I think you would be golden as long as they wouldn't be scared, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
We were on a walk the other night in our new neighborhood, and we, with the whole family, and these 2 boys, they're twin boys that my boys have become really good friends with. They're 8.
Awesome.
Yeah. And their older brother's 13. And their parents just went down the street for dinner just for the night. And they came out on our walk with us for a little bit. We know their family and everything. And I'm like, that's so cool. They can just leave for 2 hours and go to dinner and, just be right down the road. And obviously the kids can call them if they need them. But I'm like, wow, that's amazing.
Yeah. I mean, we could potentially do that. The only thing is that we live in such a rural area that to go anywhere out to eat, we have to drive 30 or 40 minutes to get somewhere good. Unless you want pizza. There's like 4 pizza places in our town, but
Yeah.
they're all bad. So
No, that's way different because I'm talking like we are maybe 2 miles from tons of different restaurant
yeah,
options. So yeah, that's a much different. You can't get home in 10 minutes.
exactly. Yeah. I don't know. We'll see. That's kind of uncharted territory. So we're going to feel our way into that one.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so coming back around to you and social media and like your running business and Rise.Run.Retreat, do you feel like this has impacted Rise.Run.Retreat in any way? And like, what are your feelings about the business?
Yeah. So, what's been really great is that our fall retreat sold out, which was awesome.
Amazing.
And, obviously the majority of those registrations were sort of before I left social media, but, it continued to sell even after I got off social. And, we have a pretty healthy email list, so we stay in contact with everybody. And Rise.Run.Retreat itself still has we still have our social media channels. So we've got our Facebook page and the Instagram, and our community coordinator, Sandra LaFlamme, who's takes kind of care of that, and she oversees all of that. And so it doesn't seem like things have negatively impacted what we've been offering. I also, we have 2 virtual retreats that are coming up in September and November. And so, we'll see if we're, kind of able to get the word out about those well. I know that I primarily used my social media, my Instagram channel, and then also Rise.Run.Retreat's channel to kind of announce those things and promote those things. So, we're still using the Rise.Run.Retreat channel. And actually, next week I'll be going live with one of our guests for our September retreat. So I'll be live on Instagram next week, which is fun.
On Rise Run though, not
and
on Sarah Canney.
Yeah, on Rise.Run.Retreats. Yeah, Instagram. So yeah, I mean, I haven't seen a huge impact, but we also haven't officially rolled out everything we're offering in the fall. So I think the real sort of litmus test is going to be obviously when we open registration and kind of see, how things shake out for our September and our November virtual retreat.
But you're sold out for this fall for the in-person.
Yeah.
Yeah, what a relief. Like you can just enjoy planning.
Yeah. And for the most part, like this is my 6th year doing Rise.Run.Retreat, and I've created sort of systems and frameworks. And so actually everything is done. I'm just finalizing the last things with the caterer. So for the most part, everything is kind of ready to roll, which is nice. So I think it's going to be a fantastic time. It's going to be October in New Hampshire, so the leaves will be changing. There'll probably be peak fall foliage, and it's going to be a lot of fun.
Okay, so give everybody just a brief, like, what is Rise.Run.Retreat and I know that they can't come this fall, but guess what? You can go next fall. Will you do a spring in person?
Yeah. I'm still trying to figure out what is in store for 2022. The last 2 years have been, I mean, for anyone who organizes any kind of events, has been a roller coaster. And obviously things are still changing pretty rapidly, even now. So we typically announce our fall or our schedule in usually like at the end of the year, and then we open registration in January. But I think we'll probably stick to that, like January, sort of announcing the details for 2022. So, but yeah, I mean, Rise.Run.Retreat is something that I started, 2015, so a while ago, and it really sort of came out of, I mean, like you, I started with blogging, and in 2013, I was on one of the Noon Hydration Hood to Coast blogger teams that ran the Hood to Coast Relay. And that experience itself was just really impactful, not just like for my running, but also just for my confidence and kind of sense of self. It came at just a really important time in my life. And I walked away from that thinking like, okay, that was amazing, but how do I do more of that? And so I think I was like, well, maybe I could do something like that. Like maybe I can bring women together around running to have these really amazing, life-changing experiences that that helped them feel the way that I felt, which was confident and strong in a way that I had never felt before. So that's really kind of why it started, was wanting to provide that same experience for other women. And then it's just kind of grown from there in terms of not so much the size, because we always try to keep it pretty small at around 15 people. But the vision, I think, has grown from there. And we've added in, for a while, we did some camps. We collaborated with Mary Johnson at Lift, Run, Perform, and we put on a couple camps, a couple summers in a row, or a couple falls in a row, I guess. And then, this 2020, we started offering a virtual retreat, which was really popular. That was just a nice thing for people to do, and we try to make it just as engaging and, highly connective, I guess you could say, as our in-person retreat. We also have guest speakers that come to the virtual retreat as well. Yeah. And so we've kind of grown in terms of what we offer. So that's been really, really neat to see.
Yes. I am so in awe of you just going all in on this. I mean, when Sarah mentioned earlier that her husband is the primary stay-at-home parent, that's because she went all in on her dream.
Yeah. I mean, it was kind of a big leap for us. I can't say that it's been smooth sailing, because it has been very rocky. If there was ever a year to
right
to like go all in on one person's salary, it was not 2020.
Right.
Let me tell you. But we found a way. We found a way to do it and to make it work. And I feel like it's taken a lot of blood, sweat, and tears to get it to this point. But it's really neat to see, kind of to think about all the women who have participated and think about the impact that it's had on them. And hopefully we'll continue to have, that's always just really neat to think about.
I'm so inspired by your work ethic and your passion and drive to make this what it is. Like, I haven't been to a retreat. I want to come to one, but I just think it takes a special person to be able to put together something so intimate and real, and not just going through the motions like, oh yeah, we're having 3 retreats a year and all these things. It's like, no, this is like a real, special, intimate, you're going to grow, you're going to learn, you're going to get to know people event.
Yeah, for sure. And that's kind of at the heart of what we do, is just, I have some just really great volunteers / staff who come. And one of the things that I say to our staff when they come on board and help with the weekend is, every woman who walks through the door, I really want them to feel seen and heard and loved. Like, that's just my primary goal when people come to Rise.Run.Retreat, is that they feel that. And I think that's so important. One of the things that I hear just so often from women, as I've kind of done this over the years, is that, just a lot of women struggle with feeling like they're enough, and feeling like, that they're not worthy of sort of honoring themselves and sort of what they want, or, whatever dreams that they might have. And, and so my goal is that, women can come and just kind of feel like they're enough, and that they're worthy. So that's kind of the underlying goal of the retreat.
So if you guys haven't gone to one, get ready to sign up when she releases the dates in January for next year. But people can do the virtual retreats this fall. Yeah.
Yep. So we have a virtual retreat coming up in September, and we're actually we're dropping all the information and announcing, or opening registration and announcing our guest speakers on the 1st, I think. I got to pull up my calendar here.
I can't believe it's almost September. That's crazy.
I know, right? I feel like August just evaporated. So we're opening registration on the 31st. So that's next Tuesday. Gosh, next Tuesday. This coming Tuesday. Registration opens, and we'll announce our guest speakers. And then Thursday, I'm going live with one of our guest speakers over on Rise.Run.Retreat Instagram. And then the actual virtual retreat is the 17th, 18th, and the 19th. And then our November virtual retreat is going to be the 12th through the 14th, and we will open registration and announce our guest speakers on the 1st of November. And we have some really great sponsors. UFOS has been an awesome sponsor. If you're familiar with their squishy recovery sandals.
So comfortable.
Everybody gets a swag bag or swag box that gets shipped to your door. And then, you have this sort of live interactive experience that lasts for the Friday night, Saturday, and Sunday. And I try to make it so that real life can happen around what's going on with the virtual retreat. I know I've signed up. There was one virtual conference I signed up for, and there was literally a session on the hour every hour, and I was like, I can't do this. So with the virtual retreat, we spread things out. You got a couple hours. There's really just like pretty much 3 key sessions every day. So it's doable if you've got a busy schedule, and then everything you can watch on replay and have access to the playback for 2 weeks after. But it's a lot. It's been really fun. I've had the opportunity to meet women from all over the country and all over the world through the virtual retreat, which has been, just super fun.
So cool. Yeah. I mean, 2020 was insane, and seeing you pull off, like, I can't do in-person retreats, I'm going to make this happen virtually, was really cool. And I love that you're continuing to do that, even though in-person things are happening again.
Yeah. I mean, I think it was important to me to offer. I mean, I've always wanted to offer something that was more affordable.
Right.
The in-person retreat's pretty expensive, and we do offer a scholarship. We have a scholarship every year, but I just wanted people to be able to get the same or as close an experience as possible at a price point that was a little bit more doable. So
I love that you do the scholarship, and I know that Mel Charbonneau with Made to Move, Fellow Flowers, she does the same thing for her races. She's just like, if you can't afford it, sign up. Like, we will they have a scholarship program where other people who are running her races can pay for people who aren't able to afford it, but like want to participate. And I think it's important to talk about those things too, to encourage other races and businesses to do things like that, because the in-person retreat is expensive, but it's giving the people who want to be there that can't be there because of that reason, the opportunity it's really special that you do that.
Yeah. And what's so neat is actually in 2019, we had, or actually, no, it was last year, it was 2020, because we were able to do one very small, sort of scaled back in-person retreat in October of 2020. And that year, and this was all sort of before COVID happened, but we launched the scholarship, we had the applications, we had quite a few applicants, and one of our alumni is the woman who she actually sponsors the scholarship. And it was such a hard decision with the applicants that she was like, well, do you think if I go in half for this second person, do you think the community will do the other half? And I was like, well, let's find out. And so I put it out there to our community. We have just an amazing alumni community. And I said, hey, like, we've got some really deserving people, and we would love to be able to offer 2 scholarships. And people donated money like in less than 24 hours. Like, it was there. So that's always really neat to see when people pay it forward like that. And it just makes me feel so proud of that community, that people are, just generous in that way.
That's so cool. Okay. So friends, you can, I always say, like, at the end of episodes, I'm like, follow Sarah Canney. Well, you can still follow her on social media. She's Sarah Canney over there. Sarah.Canney.
Profile.
Yeah. She still has her profile. You can see her picture with the sun in the background, and she explains why she gets off, Instagram. But you can sign up for her newsletter and stay in touch with her that way. How do people sign up for your newsletter?
Yeah, so they can head to my website, which is sarahcanney.com, and in the contact, they can just click the contact button, and that'll take them, or they can just go to sarahcanney.com/newsletter. That's the other quick way to do it. And I have been putting up some blog posts here and there. And then, my newsletter, there are so many good newsletters out there.
So many newsletters these days.
Yeah. So mine is not a like running recap. It's more of sort of like, I don't know, a thoughtful reflection, like what's on my mind and what's the lesson sort of thing. I guess that's a way to describe it. So if you're into that kind of thing, and then I usually talk about like what I'm reading, what I'm listening to, that kind of, it's kind of in that vein.
I mean, it's like a good, well thought out, legit blog post.
Yeah, right? Exactly. Yeah.
Like what's on your mind?
It's exclusive to the newsletter.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I love it. Cool. Well, you're solo parenting, and you did me a big favor doing this on a day you're solo parenting. So I really appreciate it.
The kids have been looking forward to being able to watch a movie all day long. So you did that really is what happened.
What are they watching?
Mrs. Doubtfire.
Oh, I love that. We watched that with our kids recently too, our big kids.
Yeah, they think it's hilarious.
It's so fun when your kids get to an age where they can watch shows like that you sort of appreciate and kind of can chuckle at and you remember from growing up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we've been kind of going through all of those like old, it hurts to say old, but those like classic movies from our childhood. Those have been fun to rewatch with the kids.
Have you done Honey, I Shrunk the Kids?
Oh, yes.
Okay. Yep. That's a big one here. Yeah. So good. All right, Sarah. Well, thank you so much. We'll put information to all that Sarah's up to in the show notes at lindsayhind.com. Thanks, Sarah.
All right. Thanks, Lindsay.
All right, everybody. Thanks so much for being here today. Thank you, Sarah, for sharing your story, coming back on the show. I love talking to you and catching up. If you guys want to hear more from Sarah, you should sign up for her newsletter. She sends out like emails that are really good and detailed and way better than social media. Go to sarahcanney.com to learn more about what she's up to and also sign up for her newsletter. All right, friends, thank you for being here. Thank you, Beam and Gooder, for supporting this episode. Use the code ANOTHER15 for 15% off your Gooder shades, and use the code ANOTHER for 15% off Beam products. And if you're wanting to run the New York City Marathon for Every Mother Counts and be coached by me, go to everymothercounts.org and get signed up. All right. Have a really great Friday and a wonderful rest of your weekend. And we'll see you next week for 2 episodes of the podcast.